Please welcome Tony Hawk.
Hey guys, how are you? My name is Tony Hawk. I'm a professional skateboarder, and I'm very old. And that's all you really need to know about me. If you'd told me 15 years ago that I'd be standing on a stage following Anita Hill with a half pipe behind me, I would have said that's a good idea for a sitcom. Anyway, I'm here mostly to talk about women in skateboarding. I grew up skating in the late 70s at a time when skating was on its way out of being cool. It was very difficult to get any recognition as a skater, and you were only judged upon your skill level in competition. And to add to that, to be a girl in skateboarding was even harder because you were competing against literally hundreds of boys. And I remember exactly 3 girls in the competition series that I was in. They had their own division, but I admired them greatly because they were standing up against all odds. We were fighting for recognition just to be skateboarders. They were fighting for recognition within that small community. And fast forward to the present, we've come a long way in terms of empowering girls and women in skateboarding. A documentary about a skate camp and school in Afghanistan that brings girls in to skate just won the Academy Award for Best Short Documentary Feature. I got to ride the coattails of that and be in the audience, and that was pretty cool. Between then and now, a lot of things have come to pass, and a lot of key players have been involved in terms of that recognition. I mean, we're on the way to the Olympics literally this year, with skateboarding entering 2 disciplines, both with male and female. So one of the key players in that process is Amelia Brodka. She, in 2012, she founded Exposure Skate, which was a nonprofit dedicated to women and girls in skateboarding. She also organized her own competition series, the Exposure event. It's basically, she grew up in a time when skateboarding was on the rise. Skateboarding was actually cool, but to be a woman in skateboarding was not cool. And she couldn't find much support, so she chose to make her own event. I'll let her tell you all about it. And also, she is a pro skater in her own right, and she is in contention to represent the U.S. in the Olympics for the park event. So I want to introduce you to Amelia Brodka.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I do have to just say one minor thing. I'm actually trying to represent my motherland, Poland. I was born and raised there for Olympics.
That's right.
So,
I'm sorry.
I don't mean to correct you.
It's very confusing.
But
Sorry. There's a lot of people that live in the U.S. that are representing their native countries, including Lizzie Armanto, who will be representing Finland. Mm-hmm. So I get tied up because we're just here. What can I say? So I started skating, like I said, when it was very uncool. Amelia started skating when it was not cool for girls, and I'm wondering, how did you deal? First of all, what motivated you, and how did you deal with that sort of backlash?
Well, first of all, your video game coming out and you landing the 900, it was everywhere. And I was so excited by the aspect of skateboarding. I didn't know any other girls that skated, except for Alyssa Steamer, who was in your video game. And honestly, when I started, I got made fun of so much. Like, the guys that skated would just call me a poser because I was a girl trying to skate. And then I thought, you know, I really want to be a part of this community. I'm going to try to learn these tricks, and then maybe they'll accept me. And I remember learning a 360 kickflip, which is a slightly more advanced street trick.
It's a very advanced skateboarding move.
And
just being humble.
And I tried to show them because I was so excited, and then they just told me that I must secretly be a guy. And I was like 13 at the time, and being told something like that was just, you're already so uncomfortable in your body. It was just devastating. But I do remember going to see the X Games demo in Philadelphia. Or I went to see the X Games, and somewhere off in a corner of the arena, there weren't very many lights on, there was no one commentating. I looked closer, and there were women skating in this huge halfpipe, maybe four times the size of this one. And one of them was the same age as I was. She was 12. Her name was Lindsay Adams. And she was doing these amazing tricks. And that's when I realized this is something that I could do. This is something that could be for me.
To bridge that gap, one of those girls that was, one of the women that was skating that ramp was Cara Beth Burnside, who was one of those 3 girls that I was talking about that I grew up skating with. And she was an inspiration. She crossed generations and probably was one of the reasons that Lindsay was ever skating.
Yeah, I know that those women really helped pave the way for Lindsay as well, for all of us, but they really helped support her, and she got really, really good really fast, and it was really inspiring. Yeah,
she was actually the first girl. You guys may have heard of the McTwist, which is a skateboard trick that's in the air. It's a 1.5 spin. It's kind of a somersault. Lindsay was the first woman to ever do a McTwist at a gigantic skateboard demo that we did in Paris. And I did a 900 at that exhibition in Paris, which I thought was like sort of the apex of the thing. She came along and did the first McTwist after me. She stole the show. It was awesome. I was super excited to have facilitated that. So we also have with us Sky Brown, who is, what can we say about Sky?
Well, now she does McTwists in her sleep, and she's only 11 years old.
True, that's true. But also, I think there's a very cool progression here where Sky grew up at a time that you helped pave the way for in terms of having opportunity and having support. So when she started skating, it wasn't different for her. It was very much something that girls could aspire to, that was available to them. And now it's fascinating to watch her growth because there's so much support for her. She's on her way to the Olympics. She's very likely on her way to winning gold in the Park Series at a very young age. And she doesn't know the kind of struggles that Amelia went through. She doesn't know the kind of stereotypes that we all had to deal with. Well, not me personally, but seeing the women that I skate with deal with.
Yeah, it was really interesting because for me at the time when I started skating, it seemed like the apex of what you can accomplish as a female skater was to be in the X Games. And so that was my dream and my goal, and I moved out here via going to USC, and no cheers for USC? And so I was able to drive down to San Diego and learn to skate vert, which is, like I said, a ramp a couple times bigger than this one. And one year I got to be an alternate, and it was super exciting. And the women that were skating in the event were very inspiring, and I got to sit next to the ramp and watch. And then the following year, I just worked super hard and learned a bunch of new tricks, and I submitted them to the woman who was organizing the women's vert event at the X Games. And she just took me aside and she said, you know, Amelia, that video was great. We had you on the list, but the women's event was canceled. And I was just shocked. This was like my dream. I was like, you canceled my dream? How is that possible? And that year, they virtually took all of the women's divisions out of every skate contest. So it seemed like all of a sudden, if you were a girl or a female skateboarding, there was no way to go. It didn't seem possible to be a pro skateboarder as a female.
So you took it upon yourself to start your own event a little while later.
So first, I tried to capture kind of what was going on because I saw more and more women and girls skating at a higher level. That's when Lizzie Armanto really came through and she started progressing women's skateboarding. There were girl skaters everywhere, or it felt like it to me. And so I decided to do a documentary to kind of show, like, look, there are tons of girls and women that skate all over the world and they're doing it super well. And I tried to juxtapose that with the gatekeepers of the industry. So the documentary is called Underexposed, and if you have a moment, you can check it out. But that led to me meeting Leslie Cohn, my co-founder, and she and I joined forces to create an all-women skateboarding event. I just thought, all right, if you guys aren't going to put on events, then I guess we'll just do it. I had no idea what I was doing at the time, and it was really exciting because that first event that we did, Alana Smith became the first female to land 540 in competition, a McTwist, which is what we spoke about earlier. She was the second one to ever land it, but it was in the middle of a heated competition. It was a historical moment. And ever since then, Leslie and I decided to turn the concept of this event into a nonprofit. And we donated all the proceeds to survivors of domestic violence.
See, a pioneer. And so to extend to that in the new generation, ladies and gentlemen, Sky Brown. Wait till you see her skate. So Sky, I'd like to know, it's really interesting for us because we grew up in different generations of skateboarding. What inspired you to start skating?
Well, my dad would skate every day after surfing. He built a backyard mini ramp, and the skateboard was always my favorite toy. I would just want to play on the skateboard. I didn't like any of my other toys. So I would just steal my dad's board, and I would not like to walk anywhere. I would just be on my skateboard, even in the supermarket. I guess it was my favorite toy.
I love that you called it a toy.
It's my favorite toy, too.
It was. When I was young, that's what people thought of it as a toy. And then as we got older, especially after your teenage years, they thought, well, were you still playing with those toys? And we were always struggling to have some sort of validation. And now we've come full circle because we're back to them being toys. And we can't be more proud. So is there any sort of trick or technique that you've recently learned that was really hard for you, a big challenge?
Yes, I just learned how to do a McTwist.
This is just the McTwist conference. And how was that? Okay, so I'll tell you about my journey with McTwist. There was one person doing it at the time, Mike McGill. He created it in 1984. I saw him do it, and I became obsessed with it. It took me months to figure out how to make one, and when I finally made it, I was squatting down on my board, wobbling across the bottom of the ramp. It was the ugliest thing in the world, but I couldn't have been more proud that I actually made one. How was your journey to the McTwist?
Yeah, so, I don't know. I was just skating to the ramp, and I'm like, I want to try McTwist. And I just went for it. It was a really weird one. I did not spin. I just landed, backwards. That was kind of scary because, I don't know. But
it's frightening. It's a trick that forces you to turn your back to your landing zone, and you basically have to use the force to figure out where you are in the air, like a gymnast. And the first one you try is one of the most frightening experiences of your life. But how long did it take you to learn?
It took me less than 2 days, 1 day.
What?
That's awesome.
And Sky, tell us about your first competition.
Yeah, so my first competition was exposure. I was begging my parents to do it because I wanted to meet all the skater girls. It was a really fun contest. I got third place. It was really fun.
She got third place among 170 of the world's greatest female skateboarders. At age 7, I might add.
Most of them are much older too. So I know that one challenge, especially when you have success at a young age, is to keep pushing yourself and to keep challenging yourself. How do you do that when you've already had so much success at this age?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I have a responsibility to keep on pushing boundaries to show girls that you can do it. I feel like girls think that I'm a girl, so I can't do it. But I want them to think that I'm a girl, so I can do it. And that's why... And that's why I want to keep on going high and keep on making better tricks.
That's it. I mean, and you're doing just that and inspiring girls across the world. I mean, it's really cool. But like I said, skateboarding will be the Olympics for the first time this year in Tokyo, and I feel like that's going to open up so many doors of opportunity, especially for girls in different areas of the world where there is no skateboarding, there is no interest in skateboarding, and Sky's leading the way. So I think what's left here is to maybe see her in action. And us too. Don't forget about us.
We'll try to keep up.
But yeah, this is a much smaller ramp than we're used to, but I think it's pretty damn cool that they put it on the stage. So we're going to skate for you a little bit, and we're going to do a skateboard giveaway in a little bit as well. Enjoy.